Okay, guys, what we're going to do now is we're going to talk about geometric sequences. Okay? Geometric sequences are similar to arithmetic, but instead of adding or subtracting the same number over and over, now we are going to be multiplying or dividing by the same number over and over. Okay? So for example, I'm going to come up to this example that they put here. The geometric sequence is 21, 63, 189, 567. Okay, so we can get from 21 to 63 by multiplying by 3. 21 times 3 is 63. 63 times 3 is 189. 189 times 3 is 567. Okay, so we're multiplying by 3 every time, and that's why this is a geometric sequence. Okay, so on the exercises 1 through 4, it says determine whether each sequence is arithmetic, geometric, or neither. Okay, arithmetic, that's where we're either adding or subtracting by the same number over and over. Geometric, which means we're multiplying or dividing by the same number. Or neither. This is just anything else. Okay? So let's look at number 1. Our sequence is 1, 2, 4, 8. Okay? I'm going to check geometric first, just because that's what we're talking about at the moment. So, if I look at the common ratio, is there a common ratio? Could I multiply or divide by the same number over and over? So 2 divided by 1 is 2. Okay, so I could do 1 times 2 is 2. Well, 4 divided by 2 is also 2. So that means I could multiply by 2 here. And 8 divided by 4 is also 2. So 1 times 2 is 2, times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8. So since we're multiplying by the same thing over and over, this is geometric. And it says to explain, so I'm just going to make a note that it's geometric because it has a common ratio. Okay. So let's look at number 2. 9, 14, 6, 11. Okay. So first I'm looking for, is there a common ratio? Is it geometric? Well, 14 divided by 9, we could do that. It's not going to give me a pretty number. 6 divided by 14, this one is not looking geometric to me. So then I have to decide, well, is it arithmetic? Could I add or subtract? But if you notice, it goes from 9 to 14 to 6 to 11. It's getting higher and lower and higher. And so we wouldn't be able to add or subtract a number over and over and then go from low to high to low to high to low to high. So this is going to be neither. It does not have a common ratio. It does not have a common difference. So it is neither. Okay. Now, we're going to look at number 3, even though it's scary because it's fractions. Okay, but they like to give you examples of geometric sequence in fractions. Okay, so what I'm looking at is I have 2/3, 1/3, 1/6, 1/12. Okay, so what I'm noticing is that 1/3 is half of 2/3. A 1/6 is half of a 1/3, and a 1/12 is half of 1/6. So I could multiply by 1/2 or divide by 2. So this is geometric because it has a common ratio. Okay. So I'm going to look at number 4 now. -2, 5, 12, and 19. Okay, so geometric, it would have to have a common ratio. Could I multiply or divide the same thing over and over? Okay. Well, there's not a pretty number, and just because it's not pretty doesn't mean it's not the answer. But -2, 5, 12, 19, I'm not seeing something I could consistently multiply by to get me from here to here, and here, and here. Okay, so I'm going to look and see if it's arithmetic. And could I add or subtract something? Well, if I'm at -2 and I want to get to 5, I could add 7. 5 plus 7 is 12. 12 plus 7 is 19. So this is actually an arithmetic. These are the kind of sequences we talked about in the first video. Okay, because instead of a common ratio, it has a common difference. All right. Now, the last two examples I want to work through is we don't have to guess what kind of sequence it is. They've told us these are geometric sequences, but what they want us to do is find the next three numbers in the sequence. Okay. Well, in order to do that, I have to figure out what is my pattern, what is my common ratio, what am I going to multiply or divide by every time to get me to that next number. These are a little bit extra tricky because if you notice, it's a positive, negative, positive. Okay. What that tells me is that my common ratio is actually going to be a negative number. Okay. And I want to know 648. If I'm going from 648 to 216, I'm dividing. Okay. So what would I have to divide by? Well, 216 goes into 648 3 times. So it looks like my common ratio is negative 3. I'm going to divide by negative 3. 216 divided by negative 3 is 72. 72 divided by negative 3 is going to be a negative 24. If I divide by negative 3, that gives me a positive 8. So notice it goes positive, negative, positive, negative, positive. So I know my next one's going to be negative. And it's going to be 8 divided by 3. Now that's not going to give me a pretty number, and I don't want to mess with decimals, so I'm just going to leave that as 8 over 3, or 8/3. Okay, so I'm going to leave that as a fraction. And last one. I'm getting smaller as I go, so I'm going to be dividing. So I have to ask myself, well, 25 divided by what is 5? Well, 25 divided by 5. But notice it goes from a positive to negative, so that means my common ratio is a negative 5. 25 divided by negative 5 is negative 5. Negative 5 divided by itself is 1. Divide by negative 5. I'm just going to leave that as a fraction. Okay. And divide by negative 5, that's going to give me a positive 1/25th. Which is going to give me a negative 1/125th. Okay, so don't stress too much if it seems overwhelming. I know those look kind of ugly, but the main thing I want you to get out of this week's lesson is that an arithmetic sequence adds or subtracts something over and over and over, and a geometric sequence multiplies or divides by the same thing over and over and over. Okay. Don't forget to send me a message, either check into a Zoom. I'm going to be doing 3 Zooms a day this week, except for Friday. I won't have my 3:30 Zoom on Friday, but check into one of my Zooms, or send me a message through Remind, or comment on Google Classroom, or just send me an email. Remember that checking in is an easy 100 that replaces a low grade. So even if you don't need help, check in with me. But if you do need help, don't hesitate to ask. I will be happy to help you however I can. Stay safe. Talk to you soon.